Hello friends, this is Jim with Science Talk. I have here a story that, let's just say I can't believe that people seriously thinking of this stuff. The headline is Two Audacious Plans for Saving the World's Ice Sheets. There's several scientists who say erecting giant walls and cooling tunnels may be the best ways to save polar ice. Some scientists think glacier geoengineering is our best bet for protecting the planet's ice sheets. Okay, here we go again. What's geoengineering? Geoengineering is the concept of humans actively trying to manipulate the planet's ecosystem, basically. Trying to manipulate physical processes, trying to manipulate what goes on. Now, in a previous video, I mentioned some compelling data. Again, I stress compelling means interesting. Nothing is proven. Is there evidence, direct evidence, that geoengineering is taking place? No. Are there people who would like to do so? Yes. Would it surprise me if perhaps in secret the U.S. government is doing geoengineering? Would it surprise me? Given the U.S. government history of secrecy, I honestly, unfortunately, would have to say no, it would not surprise me. But again, is there evidence, is there proof of this? No, there is not. However, there are certain events, certain observations that makes one wonder. I have seen photos of interesting formations in the atmosphere that I know of no natural mechanism that could create that. Is that proof? Hell no. But it makes you wonder. So, geoengineering overall, let me just state, is stupid. Okay? It's just stupid. For humans to think that we can control nature, to me, is the ultimate in hubris and arrogance and any other such adjectives you care to utilize. Because there are so many factors we don't know about, so many unseen factors, unseen parameters, unseen interactions that we don't know about, that you can never really anticipate all contingencies. So, having said that, and I hope I'm clear on this, okay, I am not saying geoengineering isn't, there's proof of it happening. I am not advocating for it. But there are people who want to do stuff like this, and this is they're trying to utilize scientific concepts, scientific techniques, and this is a program, a channel on science. So I feel I am, you could say, duty bound to report this to you. Okay, after that long-winded whatever the hell. Alright, this is what scientists are proposing, some of them. Wait till you hear these. Let's seed the atmosphere with sunlight-blocking chemicals to cool the planet. Yeah, and what happens when those chemicals wash out with the precipitate and reach the ground? What happens when it gets into, say, the soil, the water? Okay. How about pumping seawater onto the ice with the hope that it will freeze and replenish lost ice? Well, there's a couple things about that. Seawater has salt in it. There's a thing called freezing point depression. It has to be colder for it to freeze. And even then, you're going to reject the brine. Not a good idea. There's even been, and they've actually had done this. This they have done. They've actually put iron into the ocean to try and see phytoplankton growth, in the thinking that, well, more phytoplankton, they draw down CO2, and then it sequesters the CO2 into the ocean sediments. Well, because iron is what's called a micronutrient for phytoplankton, and they did a test patch of ocean off the western coast of South America, and let's just say it didn't do very well. It didn't go down well. I'll leave it at that. I was appalled, actually. I mean, sure, there's a thing called theory, and then there's a thing called practicality. In theory, it sounds great. Practicality is damn near impossible. So, scientists have now come up with the two really crazy new plans for protecting massive glaciers. Glacier Geoengineering, here we go. Let's build underwater walls built by robots. Yeah. The other proposes pumping cold water through vast tunnels bored under the ice to thicken it and keep it from sliding into the ocean. Okay, remember I did some stories on the Antarctic ice sheets before, where some of the ice will sit on the bedrock, but as the ice sheet extends out into the ocean, there's no underlying rock. So now what happens is the oceanic waters warm up, you're going to get melting from underneath. Okay? That can then destabilize the ice, and to the point, back to the point where it goes back to the last bit supported by land, and you can get a crack there, and it calves, breaks off, and off it goes. Okay, Michael Wolovic is a glaciologist at Princeton University, one of the scientists behind these proposals. He says these geoengineering projects could delay much of the polar glaciers from melting into the sea for centuries. Other ideas have been proposed, but the energy costs have been vast. Okay? Pumping water on top of polar glaciers also runs the risk of the water draining to the bed of the glacier, which will then lubricate where it meets the bedrock, enabling it to slide into the ocean. Implementation of the plans would likely cost tens of billions of dollars, if you're lucky. So, why do glaciers matter? Well, I think we know why, though. We discussed that on this channel before in the past. So, underwater walls and subglacial tunnels sound drastic, but their proponents say they may be the best way to prevent significant sea level rise as the planet continues to warm. If we do nothing, the ocean is projected to rise more than a meter by 2100. I've done a recent video where some new projections can say as high as 3 meters. That will pose a grave danger to 150 million people across the globe living in coastal areas, and could give the global economy a $50 trillion per year hit. Scientists are worried about sudden glacial loss. That happened in 2002 when a chunk of ice the size of Rhode Island broke off the east coast of the Antarctic Peninsula and went bouncing about into the Larsen Sea. I discussed with you before about Antarctica's Thwaites and Pine Island glaciers. Okay? Go back and rewatch those videos if you care to, where I discuss what the situation going on. So, having atmospheric seeding and seawater pumping being dismissed as silly notions, many glaciologists now believe the best way to save the glaciers may be to tackle the problem at the source, and they suggest constructing an enormous wall to prevent warm ocean water from eroding the glacier's ocean-facing edges. What I talked about a few moments ago, getting warm water melting from underneath. In the polar oceans, you have warm, salty water at depth with colder, fresher water on top. Wolovic says, this warm water is the biggest threat, as it causes the base of the floating ice to melt and the glaciers become unstable. I just mentioned that. If you could block this water flow, it would reduce the melt rate. Made mostly of robot-excavated ocean sediment, the walls would extend from the ocean floor to the base of the glacier's floating ice, holding it in place while shielding it from warm water. The size of the wall would depend on the glacier in question. For a small one, like the Jacob Chauvins Glacier in western Greenland, Wallowick says, a 100-meter high wall extending for about 5 kilometers might suffice, and that's a small one? Listen to this one. The much larger Thwaites Glacier might require a 300-meter high wall extending for 50 or more kilometers. I usually don't like to make fun of scientists because I'm one myself. But goodness grief, please share whatever foliage you are smoking with us. Wow. This is just silly. This is just ludicrous. I mean, when you really come right down to it, you're going to have to build a ring around the entire continent. Let's get real. Let's get real here, folks. This is really not doable. I'm surprised this is even being proposed, even considered. It's just not doable. Would such walls really stop the ice from melting? Computer simulations suggest they would. A wall protecting Thwaites Glacier might enable it to last another 400 centuries. That would buy us time, allowing people living along vulnerable coastlines to relocate or build better seawalls, or find better ways to ease global warming. The question is, though, there's the logistics of building such a thing. You can say, okay, here's the wall, boom, immediately put it in place in the computer model and see what happens, but it's not going to be built instantaneously. It's going to take decades to build such a thing. Well, in that time, you might as well get off fossil fuels, go with renewables, so forth. Okay, glaciers lose ice not just in the waters but underneath, right? I just mentioned that. That's because glaciers are always moving toward the sea over a thin layer of water. That's that lubricating surface on the bedrock. And as they move along, of course, there is some lubrication, but there's also some heat and friction. The heat via the friction of the ice grinding on the bedrock. And that heat, of course, will cause some melting. Warming air temperatures will cause additional melting, which we're seeing already, Greenland and Antarctica. The volume of subglacial water is becoming larger, and glaciers are accelerating towards the sea faster than they're being replenished. So Wallowick thinks it might be possible to tinker with the process and ameliorate much of the frictional heating by drilling a series of tunnels in the bedrock and pumping cold brine through them. So, as an example, Pine Island Glacier, he envisions a series of 5-meter wide tunnels starting from the nearby Hudson Mountain Range and extending roughly horizontally in the bedrock for 80 kilometers or so. Once the brine starts flowing, he hopes it could freeze some of the water underneath the glacier, slowing the moving ice in its tracks and giving the glacier time to strengthen and solidify. Wallowick is convinced that glacial geoengineering is our best bet. He's not the only scientist who thinks so. This is Sławek Tulachuk. He's a professor of earth science at the University of California, Santa Cruz. He said, this is happening. We can't close our eyes and forget about the fact we're driving a dangerous mountainous road. We're either going to be defending the coastline in our own backyard, or we can try and decrease the risk of the source of the problem, where the ice is being discharged in the ocean. Other scientists disagree, you think, saying that the money needed, that's a good point, money needed for these geoengineering schemes would be better spent on finding ways to lower the amount of greenhouse gases that are being pumped into the atmosphere. These approaches are not going to be effective because the root cause of these changes is warming ocean and air temperature, and addressing those is what's needed to have any lasting long-term framework. This is from Twila Moon, a research scientist at the NSIDC in Boulder, Colorado, National Snow Ice Data Center. So, what are the problems? Okay, I shared with you the proposed height, how high these things are going to be. What's the thickness required to hold back the pressure of the ocean? And not only that, wave action. Okay. How thick are you going to have to build these walls? Not going to be a meter thick, I can tell you that right now. Might be hundreds of meters across, if not more. You have to do the calculations. To build the wall itself, how much greenhouse gas is going to be released from the machinery doing the work, from the machinery to transport the equipment? You know, you got to get the equipment there. The logistics of getting stuff to Antarctica are hairy, at the least. You know, they say, oh, we'll dig up the sediments. Well, if you're going to build walls as high, where are you going to get all these sediments? You're going to have to dredge up the sediments from very far offshore to transport it close by. You have to do some major dredging, and out in the Southern Ocean, good luck with that. So, you know, the materials, the cost, machinery, the pollution from using the machinery and getting the machinery there, you know, the people that needed to oversee the construction. I just, you know, computer modeling and simulations aside, this is not feasible. This is just plain stupid idea. This is really not a good idea. So, but yet you got people dreaming up such things. Your best bet is we need to get off of fossil fuels, go with the renewables, and do so as fast as possible. Thank you for your time. Hey folks, just a reminder to please subscribe and click the bell so you know when I drop a video. Please share my videos, please tell others of my channel and of the work that I do. I also hope that you will consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Science Talk with Jim Massa, where from time to time I upload videos there exclusively for my patron subscribers. Details in the description box below.